going on? I want to welcome you to From Half Court for today, June 21st, 2023, but also, boys, NBA Draft Week. I am one of your hosts, Sean Murphy, alongside one of those boys, Jeff Iafrady. Jeff, with that beautiful picture of Big Money Matt right in the back right there.
Oh, yeah, you know what? I couldn't fit it. You couldn't fit his balls in the picture, though. Because the guy just has the guy needs a wheelbarrow to carry him around. What he did after reading
Your
that
camera
CBA,
would tip over if you even tried.
Sean, you know what he did? He rewatched our last week's pod about the CBA, and you know what he did? He just said, "Okay." Then went on and traded for Bradley Beal. So big win for Matt Ishbia, big win for the Suns. But I can't wait to get into it, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, same here. My immediate thoughts when I saw that trade go through, like you said, I literally thought about our conversation last week right away, and it's like, NBA. I'm serious, guys. You don't want to run into that second apron. The Phoenix Suns. They're like, you know what? We're doing it.
Yeah, zero F's given.
Yeah, 100%. You know who gives a lot of F's though? My guy down here on the bottom, the man with bringing the heat from Marquette, Michigan, the man, the myth, the legend, Troy. Pleasure to see you as always, my guy.
Pleasure to see you too, and I'm shaking with NBA withdrawal syndrome. 7 days in, man. 1 week without NBA basketball. But hey, the draft is coming up. Normally we have to wait a couple weeks before the draft, but this is a blessing where it's only 1 work week, but still, about a 12-day difference. But it's gonna be good. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. If you're wondering what that flapping noise is in the background, that's me tapping my freaking inside of my elbow like a junkie. That's on withdrawals, because that's how I'm feeling without basketball. But anyway,
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, 100%.
We're draft junkies, though, Sean. Bad. We're draft junkies this week.
Oh, 100%. 100%. We're going to be talking a whole lot about some 19 and 20-year-olds this week, guys, because this is From Half Court. Just like, wait, what? We're here to talk NBA draft, but this is From Half Court. Each and every week, we talk all things NBA basketball, all things Detroit Pistons, all things NBA. If you like that, be sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the content coming from here. But also be sure you follow my guys on Twitter, Jeff at Jeff Iafrady, Troy at TroySergey44, so you're not missing any of the content and the things they got going on. You could also follow myself at Sean Half Court. But gentlemen, let's get right into it. The NBA draft is this week, and with that, there is a lot of potential that can hit the fan. Currently, of the 10 teams drafting in the top 10, 4 of them have reportedly expressed interest in moving their pick. One of them being the Detroit Pistons. Now, according to FanDuel Sportsbook, if the draft were to happen today, according to the Vegas odds, right now the most likely pick at number 5 is Cam Whitmore out of Villanova. However, James Edwards III, our guy, you might remember him from, our pod a couple weeks ago, actually did a pod today as a recording with Sam Vecini from the Athletic as well. And it sounds a lot to me, guys, like the Pistons are going to either trade back or possibly go with one of the Thompson twins, Jarris Walker, Taylor Hendricks. A name that I did not hear as a likely name for Detroit was Cam Whitmore. Now, this could be smoke screens. This could also be true. We don't know. All we know is that from the sounds of it, Detroit likes multiple guys, and it sounds like they possibly are okay with getting themselves in a different draft position to get multiple picks if it means maybe getting a guy, if it means not getting their first pick of those guys. Jeff, where do you land? What, now that, we've had some time, to look into the prospects, who would you like to see in a Pistons uniform? Who do you think we'll see? And how much commotion are you expecting Thursday night?
Oh, there's always a lot of commotion. So that's what's most excited about Thursday, or I'm most excited about Thursday. But for the prospects, I think we've kind of talked about this at length, ad nauseum already. But all the prospects you listed, and when we've spent plenty of time talking about each and every one of them, I'm cool with any of those guys, even though I might have a preference in Taylor Hendricks. I think Jarris Walker, Cam Whitmore, either of the Thompson twins. I mean, I'm assuming Amin is going to go third. I would at least expect so. I'm cool with fourth. Excuse me. You would at least expect so. I don't have an issue with any of those guys. I think the idea of trading back though is what kind of is off-putting to me, and I kind of talked to you guys before the podcast about it, and although it's worked out in select situations, and Troy brought up a great point about when the Boston Celtics got Jason Tatum and they traded back and still got their guy, but there's always those other situations where you trade back, and although there is a couple guys you're cool with, and if that is the scenario for Troy Weaver, then he's okay with it. But if there's one or two guys you prefer more than the other, or maybe one selective guy, but you don't think he's that far removed from the rest of the pack, I still believe in taking him. No matter where you stand, if that's your guy, then that's your guy. It's the same thing that applies to any other draft. The NFL draft, for example, I defended Brad because if you're taking your guy, we can get back at it in 5-10 years and evaluate it. But as long as you take your dude, I'm cool with it. So the idea of trading back, yes, it's always enticing. We talk about this all the time. But also, if there's a group of players that are all relatively around the same, I guess, prospect rating, you have to wonder who's trading up to get a guy. If they're all in the same pool of players, there's got to be a team that's so in love with a player that they would be willing to trade up and get it. Other than the top three, I don't see a team being enticed to do it to 5. So I don't see a trade back scenario. I see most likely the Pistons. I mean, if they do trade the pick, I'd be shocked, but staying put at 5 and taking their dude, no matter who that is, no matter whichever prospect it is.
Yeah, for sure. Troy, what's your pulse at? How are you feeling going into draft night? Are you worried about the reports? Is there a player that you really want to see the Pistons pull the trigger on? And ultimately, what direction do you see them going?
Yeah, Jeff brought up a lot of good points, but I still think at the end of the day, I wouldn't be surprised if they trade back a few picks and to do it the scenario where they get maybe one of the guys toward the lesser of the packs. But talking about Walker, talking about Whitmore, Thompson twins, that whatever. And then getting a piece in return with that. But I still think you're going to keep 5, and I think you're going to get Whitmore at 5. I think the Vegas odds have it. I really think Cam Whitmore is going to be the guy. I think he's a guy that can come in, that can make a difference from day one. But at the end of the day, too, I want to remind Pistons fans that we're not there during the workouts as well. And, the Pistons are bringing these guys in for workouts, seeing, testing, their ability with speed and ability with, I'm sure, shot creating as well. And I just think there's a lot that goes into truly studying a player that looking at their college highlights or their G League highlights on YouTube doesn't do full justice to. So what I'm trying to say with that is, if the Pistons don't pick Whitmore, or maybe Troy Weaver shocks us with a guy that wasn't really much on our radar, or trades back for a guy that wasn't much on our radar, there's a reason for that. So
I'll just take it one step further, Troy.
Yeah.
Scouts are sickos. They are freak human beings who spend literally all of their hours watching tape, evaluating players, looking at how they stand, their body language, their demeanor. They study every little thing to try and come up with who they think their best player is. And from hearing in Detroit, it sounds like there's a lot of diverse opinion as far as what they can do with that pick. I know Jarris Walker from the very beginning has been connected to that pick at 5 just because of he's from the DMV just like Troy Weaver. He's a guy who has a lot of those intangibles that fit being a Detroit Piston, that he just looks like a Troy Weaver guy. We've talked about that from the beginning, but at the same time, we're hearing, the infatuation with, with the Thompson twins. We're hearing Taylor Hendricks had an awesome workout. A lot of it, also comes down to how they interview and, what they think are projecting their ceilings are. And I think, ultimately the thing to remember is that the draft is really just guessing at the end of the day. It is guessing and betting and projecting on who you think is going to be the best player going forward. And, I do think, I personally think that, it will be unlikely that Detroit finds a suitor to trade back, because I do think that other teams also see the value in having multiple picks. Like the only way that I see that happening, I mean, there's really two suitors to me. It's Utah and it's Orlando. It's these teams that have multiple shots in the first round. That, if instead of using, 2 first round picks, they trade them to Detroit to go and get one instead, right? Like Utah in particular is the one I look at, because I think if Detroit could find a way, trade with Utah, let them go up to 5, and then they move down to 9, and they can get Taylor Hendricks or possibly even Anthony Black, or, if one of the Thompson twins are available there, and then also get more capital in the draft to possibly get another prospect or use that to maybe get a player who can help us now. I see that makes sense. And, I see a lot there, but at the same time, that you are making a bet on,
Right.
if you think Taylor Hendricks is going to be about just as good as Cam Whitmore, because, man, from an athleticism standpoint, from the 3-point shooting standpoint, Cam Whitmore has a lot of it right now. But I mean, Jeff, you've been a Taylor Hendricks supporter. What do you think that, what do you think are some of those things that Detroit saw, and why do you, and, again, like for those that haven't been listening, why is he a guy that has been rising in the ranks and becoming more prominent in the draft conversation?
So I'll start with the pushback I get often for Taylor Hendricks, at least beforehand. I know everyone else now is starting to come around, which is great. But before, it was always BPA over fit. And I always used to get crap for Taylor Hendricks because they thought my entire argument was based around fit, which I think that's part of it. But the other part of it is you see the size. I mean, he's 6'8", 6'9", with over a 7-foot wingspan. You see his weak side defense. I mean, his length and what he can do defending the rim also. And he's like the perfect, I guess, ideal player. You talk about the loss of Jeremy Grant. Now you're getting essentially a guy who can play alongside Duren and, again, shoot the hell out of the ball. He was one of the best 3-point shooters. He will be coming into this class. So he's 19 years old. People, when they look at the BPA argument or upside, it's like, dude, the dude's not 22. He's 19 years old. There's still plenty of room for him to grow as well. He's a freshman also. So there's a lot of reasons I like Taylor Hendricks. I think, in all of our minds for the Pistons, you're looking for a wing, but specifically a 3-and-D wing who could be a two-way player, but also has upside to create his own shot. And again, you look at Hendricks' shot, maybe the ball handling, all those things need work. But again, none of these guys are perfect. They're all good. They're all projects at the end of the day. I just like Hendricks because of what he has and what he was gifted with. Length, size, shooting. He checks everything for me. He really does.
Now, I do also think, and, this has been pointed out as well, it does sound like Cam Whitmore is reportedly also at play at 4. If that were to happen, do you think the Pistons go with Amen Thompson? Do you think he's just too good to pass up on?
Yeah, I do. I personally do. I think Amen is a guy that can really, again, another just high energy athletic guy. I would like to see Shot get a little better, but I think he, out of the two,
a lot better.
Yeah, I think out of the two, though, I like his potential as far as form, and I think that's.
I mean, Ausar's a better shooter right now.
Right, but I think with working with NBA coaches, I think Amen could become as good or a little bit better. But I like the athleticism that I like the most out of him. So,
yeah. And I could see a situation where, at least for Amen, Cade, and Jaden Ivey, I can see a scenario in which those three can play together. Obviously, if Amen can be, and all three of them, that's
Ausar could too, by the way.
Absolutely. I think both of them could. So I'm not opposed to drafting either of the Thompson twins. I know Amen's widely regarded as the better prospect. So if he falls to you at 5 and he's available, I mean, if Troy takes a swing, I don't think anybody, or at least should be upset.
A lot of reports, by the way, though, just from reading what Sam Vecini, James Edwards III said, but also just, like starting to see what some scouts are, starting to believe, because that stuff starts to leak around draft time. Sounds like there's some scouts that think Ausar might be the better scout. I mean, better prospect, which, and the other thing as well, a little interesting tidbit, Ausar reportedly canceled his workout with the Indiana Pacers because he was reportedly told he was going to be drafted before then. So he ain't going past 6. And
again, if you look at fit, you could argue Ausar is a better fit, at least with Cade and Jaden, because he always played off ball to Amen. I mean, ever since they were growing up. So fit wise,
and when he does have the ball, he has a natural eye for playmaking as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, but at the
And
other
like,
hand, you can
if
see
you
how
put
he did with
yourself,
Magic too, right? Like that would like,
right.
it's just this is going to be fascinating, man. That's all I know.
And if you put yourself in Troy Weaver's shoes, if somehow the Rockets put Whitmore at 4, I mean, you have both Thompson twins, Taylor Hendricks and Walker. I mean, those are great potential players that you have to pick one from.
Yep.
Great prospects to have to
Yep.
pick one from at that position.
And even though this might not be even though this might not be what fans want to hear, like to be in that position and to have all those players to choose from, you know what else that means? You also have a ton that also just raises that draft value. It raises the value of that 5th pick.
Right.
Because
teams calling up Troy saying, "Hey, what does it take to get 5?" Because they would love to be in our shoes.
Yep, I think a team that you're going to see do whatever they can to move up in this draft. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I think they're going to try like hell. I think the Washington Wizards have to do whatever they can to move up in this draft because, jump starting their rebuild, like trading Bradley Beal, which believe me, we're going to get to in a little bit. I think, even though yes, you could still get a really solid player at 8 right now. I know Anthony Black is projected to go at 8 right now in a lot of draft boards. If you can get Anthony Black, that's a great pick for Washington. But at the same time, if they're gonna be in the top of the lottery next year, guys, this is the top of the lottery next year is not even near what we have right now. So if I'm the Wizards, I am scratching and clawing and see what the hell I can do to possibly get a Thompson twin to possibly get some form of life going forward for this team. Because yeah, again, we'll get to that in a little bit, but for Detroit, you have a lot of different options, and all I know is it's gonna get hella fascinating very quickly. The draft starts at 4. You could argue it starts at 2 because you have no idea. Who the hell knows?
Take Brandon Miller at 2. You could take Brandon Miller at 2.
Well, I saw people speculate, could Brandon Miller could that possibly be, could he possibly be like a player that falls in the draft and was higher, rated higher than expected? I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Brandon Miller's probably going top 3, but you don't know. You never know, man. Brandon Miller apparently didn't have the greatest workouts. I don't know.
Would you take him if you're Troy Weaver?
If he falls to 5, if he falls to 5, I think you have to.
Right, that's a decision.
Because the workouts, I understand, but you got to take him if he's there at 5.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. But guys, you know who's not going to be a player that's going to end up in a Pistons uniform? Zion Williamson. and I listen. I don't want to poo-poo. I don't want to rain on people's parades. I don't want to call out anyone specifically. I understand the merit of the conversation. I understand especially the timing of it because you bring in a guy like Monty Williams, that you bring in one of the best coaches in the league. It's clear Detroit wants to start winning. I see how people connect the dots. But Zion, first of all, isn't the right player. This isn't the right time to trade for a star. And even if we were going for the star, let's not go for the guy who's missed 120 games in 4 years and doesn't know how to handle his diet and doesn't seem to know how to handle relationships. And on top of that, doesn't even like playing in New Orleans and doesn't like small markets. Why would we bring that into Detroit? Also, the only way Zion's getting traded, and this has been vetted, this has been widely reported, it is very well known. If Zion's getting traded, it's so that the Pelicans can draft Scoot Henderson. Right. That is it. Zion's not on the block. He's not getting openly shopped. The only world Zion's on the block is if it gets them Scoot Henderson. So I'm sorry, but no.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Sean. Number one. But number 2, the proposed trade I saw, it was via ESPN. Even that trade, it made 0 sense to me because I get, that the contract and I get Zion. But to your point, I read the trade. Why are the Pistons in the 3-team trade? Like, I would assume if New Orleans, if you're going to trade with the Charlotte Hornets and get their pick, it would be just those 2 teams involved.
Yeah. If you're gonna be in a trade involving Zion, I'm getting Zion back.
Yeah,
the second pick.
That's the part I didn't understand, because you're right. If I'm New Orleans and I'm trading away a player who hasn't been healthy and has off the court questions, but at 22 is an all NBA talent, then you better damn hope I'm getting a franchise player back, and Scoot would qualify in that. Not Bojan, Isaiah Stewart in the 5th pick. Like that ain't enough.
Yeah, the Hornets reportedly want the sun, the moon, and the stars, for the second overall pick, which, by the way, as we said before the pod, as they should, because right. I mean, guys, for all intents and purposes, they having the second pick in this draft is having the number 1 pick in any other draft.
Correct.
I mean, you're getting the pick of a solid prospect. You're not getting the generational talent of Victor, but damn, you're getting a good NBA player, right? But
a probable all-star.
Yeah. Baby Derrick Rose.
Yeah, 100%. And for those that aren't aware, Bobby Marks, listen, I think they just, I think he just has to come up with these trades.
Yeah.
I think, just for the content. They're like, hey, can you come up with some creative stuff? And he's like, I'll put something together. And the trade proposal from Bobby Marks: the Detroit Pistons get Zion Williamson. The Pelicans get the 2nd overall pick, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Isaiah Stewart. And the Hornets get the 5th and 14th pick. Why in the would the Hornets go for the 5th and the 14th pick when this team doesn't even know how to draft 1 pick right? Go and get the surefire can't miss thing. Don't screw it up.
Mm-hmm.
But
right. I mean, you're in a position for Charlotte. You're in a position with Charlotte where you screwed up so many times. I guess you got LaMelo right, but you
broken clocks right twice a day.
Right. But you finally have an opportunity for a pick to be made for you. I mean, don't pick someone not Scoot.
Yeah, I was gonna. Why would you? We just got done talking about how top heavy. I shouldn't say top heavy, but at least the drop off. You look at 1, 2, 3, and then the group of prospects afterwards, and now we're talking about the Hornets moving from 2 to 5 when they could just stay put and take your basically a number 1 overall pick in Scoot Henderson.
Yeah, all that just to get the 14th pick to take a flyer in the middle of the 1st round. Oh, gee, where do I sign?
I would rather just take the best player available.
This is why, by the way, 3-team trades just don't happen in the NBA. Like, if you guys really think about it, how many 3-team trades can you actually think of in like the past 10 years? Like, I can think of
Harden, James Harden.
Like, there's maybe 2 or 3 on top of the mind, But like, the reason why they don't happen is because a 3-team trade has to make sense for all 3 parties. And it's really hard to make a deal that makes everybody happy when you add more people at the negotiating table. And this type of trade in particular, although on ESPN's trade machine, I'm sure it technically goes through, the GM would hang up on you if you even tried to get this over to him. Like, it's just not happening. And even then, I mean, we talk about how we talked last week too, like literally a week ago. We're talking about the basketball character, the Nuggets, how great they were, and the reason why they were, as dominant as they were was because of how selfless they were, how Jokic is a great team player. And then literally like less than a week later, we're like, go get Zion and add him to the Pistons. It's like, guys, like, pay attention.
Yeah, no, the likelihood of it actually happening is little to zero. Now, if there was a way it could happen, I'm open to it, but I don't think there is. There's a 0% chance, so it's not even worth talking about.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like if you somehow can get Zion to come to Detroit and be excited about coming to Detroit and do it for cheap, of course you'd take it. However, again, we don't know where this guy's at mentally. We don't know where this guy's at, with his diet. We don't know where this guy's at with his conditioning. We don't know if Zion wants it. And if you have questions on if a guy wants it, why are you talking about how badly you want him? Like, that's just what it comes down to. Like talent is paramount in this league. Absolutely. But Jokic got there because he wanted it. He has the talent, but he maximized it and got to his potential because he worked his ass off. You know, the guys who want it in this league are the ones who prevail. But anyway, speaking of wanting it, Matt Ishbia wanted everything that came with the second apron of the CBA, guys, because he went and said, Bradley Beal, come on down. You're the next contestant on the Phoenix Suns. And he traded, which, by the way, Bradley Beal got the Andre Drummond treatment because he was traded for essentially pennies on the dollar. I love that you're posing with your boy Mad Money Matt. But
we're
anyway,
just listening. We're just listening.
Yeah. You know, they trade Bradley Beal for Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, and I believe 6 second-round picks.
Yeah.
So guys, just to put in perspective, the Phoenix Suns have no more control over their future draft picks as a result of this trade. They now have 3 stars that'll get paid about $50 million, with one of them having a no trade clause because Bradley he did not absolve the no trade clause. Bradley Beal brought it right over with him to Washington. And we actually had someone in the comments last week very kindly in the last week or so actually like lay out everything about the CBA and like how crazy it is and like fully put into perspective. So I would go check that out. But essentially, like, they're not going to be able to trade, they're not going to be able to trade. They're not going to be able to do a mid-level exception. They can't trade cash. They are locked in to this team for multiple years. And guys, my first thought was I somehow feel more comfortable about Denver next season repeating. I think their road just got easier.
Well, here's the problem, and there's two sides of this, because the first side is the appreciation for Matt Ishbia and going all in and showing Suns fans that he's serious about winning. He's serious about putting whatever or putting up whatever resources necessary. But then there's the other part of it, and we just got done last week going through that part of the CBA and what that entails of. They don't give a damn, clearly. So right now the mentality is capitalizing in this window with Kevin Durant, which, okay, fair. But the other part of it is you just watched the Denver Nuggets win an NBA title. Yes, because of Jokic. Yes, because of the excellent play of Jamal Murray. But also part of that was because of their depth. The depth they had as a roster. Like, it's more than just, having star players. That's superstar players. That's important. But the Suns, to me, like right now, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, DeAndre Ayton. Like, if I'm the Suns, I'm trying to shop DeAndre Ayton. But then even if you trade him, who you putting on Jokic? Like, that's the problem also. So there's a lot of problems with the Suns right now. But again, they have the talent. But filling out the rest of that roster where they have 5 players under contract, it's those 4 and then campaign. Like, good luck, man.
They have a lot of talent, absolutely. But you know what else they have? A lot of players who miss a lot of games.
That's also true.
Bradley Beal doesn't stay on the court. Like,
right.
If you go and look back, like he played 50 games last season, 40 games a year before, 60 games a year before that, 57 the year before that. This guy misses 20 to 30 games a year. He played 82 5 years ago.
Yeah.
He's turning 30 this summer.
What I was going to say was, out of all the stars or co-stars you could have traded for, Bradley Beal is a very interesting one because we've talked about him many times before. I know we had a debate, maybe a year ago, about is he a top 15 player even in the league, right? And a lot of those somewhat inconsistencies are what was the argument of maybe that he's not. And I just think it's interesting that that's the star you go out and get. You better be very confident in Bradley Beal. And I would not have the cojones to make a trade like that because I don't know if I have enough faith in a Bradley Beal to have him be truly your third best player on a championship team that can defeat the defending champs in a conference finals. I don't know if I have that type of confidence, but you better have that confidence to make that type of deal because you just threw away 6 draft picks. 6 draft picks. So
I mean, granted, second round picks, but still,
right.
whatever draft capital you had left is gone.
I'm an optimist who likes to think the best of people, but you better be able to prove yourself in the regular season to at least be a second seed and compete.
Well, and here's the thing, though, like Bradley Beal's a good player. Don't get me wrong; he's an offensive stud. Like the guy can go get you a bucket. He's a better playmaker than people give him credit for. What does Bradley Beal bring to the Phoenix Suns that they didn't already have in abundance with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant?
Whoa,
they're going to have to share touches, which is going to be interesting too.
And they're going to have to share the point guard duties collectively like that. Like who, and I think there's a lot of value, even though Chris Paul never really was healthy either, but there's still an impact. There's still an importance of having Chris Paul out there because of how he can orchestrate everybody else with the team they have currently constructed. The reason why I don't have as much faith as other people might have in them is for a lot of different reasons, but watching the NBA, I've seen this happen, and it only happens with, it feels like, certain organizations with certain players, like when they combine and actually going out and winning an NBA title. I've seen this with OKC. I've seen this now last year with Brooklyn when the trio combined, but they never were available. It was just Kevin Durant when it was all said and done. I've seen this too many times, this story written too many times, and I kind of know how it ends, especially with a team now with Phoenix that Frank Vogel, I think he's a pretty good coach, but how can he handle that many different personalities? We'll see. And then the other part of it is with the Suns is you look at the West, you could make an argument now. The Suns didn't really. How much stock did they really increase? Like how like from last year, they're one of the better teams last year. I think they're still one of the better. They're not better than Denver. So what does this mean for the Suns? I don't think it means much. I really don't.
Well, and now in order to fill out the rest of their roster, they're going to have to rely on a lot of veteran minimum contracts. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to more than likely trade DeAndre Ayton at some point to be able to get flexibility to add role players to fill out this roster, because right now, I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, if your fifth best player is Josh Okogie, you're not winning a championship. You might not win a playing game. So
do you see him in the graphic? Do you see him in that graphic they posted? They had Okogie up there.
Oh my gosh. Man. Yeah. And it's like, and immediately just go to like, could this team win a championship? When again, we just completely forget, how these teams win titles. Like Aaron Gordon, Bruce Brown, Tavius Caldwell Pope won the Denver Nuggets title. Jokic and Jamal Murray got him there. Those are the guys that helped get him over the top.
Yeah.
Like role players are paramount, especially in this modern NBA. Seven new champions in the last 10 years. This isn't the era of super teams. It's dead. Yep. So I just, to me, I think Matt Ishbia, again, I would, if I'm a Phoenix Suns fan, I love his commitment to wanting this team to win. I love the fact that this guy wants to bring in the best of the best in order to get it done. But at the same time, this just feels a lot like when the Brooklyn Nets brought in Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce and Joe Johnson. You know what I mean? It's like, wait, what are we doing here?
Yep.
Again, there's a lot of talent. We can't deny it. And we're not saying that this team can't get to the finals or they can't do, or that they can't win a championship. Like I'm not doubting Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. I love those guys. I think they are 2 of the 10 best players in this league. But you are asking them to do way too much, because now Devin Booker is going to have to guard their best player on the other end too. And now he's going to have to run point guard in the playoffs.
Every game.
He's going to have to go get you buckets. And you're going to have to rely on Bradley Beal to be healthy. And also, what are they doing? Kevin Durant just misses 30 games in the middle of the season.
Right.
Like, how do they handle the injury waves? Because if this is a lot like the Lakers of the last couple of years, where if one little thing happens, it feels like their entire season could be side railed.
Yeah, star players, superstar players get you to the title. Role players help you win the title. It's very simple. Like it's very simple. So we'll see. I'm excited to watch the Suns. I think they're going to draw a lot of eyes on them, and they're going to be entertaining to watch. But what does this mean for winning a championship? If you look at the odds for super teams over the last handful of years, more often than not, they don't typically work out, at least in recent history, unless you have a good, stable organization or you have a franchise player that like a Steph Curry or LeBron when he's moving teams. I don't see that on the Suns. But I'm interested to see it, though. I really am.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, my first thought was maybe Matt Ishbia just is such a big 2K fan that instead of creating his own rosters in game, he bought an NBA team just so he can make his ultimate 2K roster for the game himself. Like maybe this guy's trying to make game rosters IRL. Maybe that's what's happening.
I think he just selfishly wants Cameron Payne in the starting lineup, because if you put Cameron Payne now in the starting lineup, now you're talking super team. Now you got Cameron Payne, Beal, but now we're talking. This is like a dynasty we're discussing. So I would assume it's for Cameron Payne, Sean. Has to be, man. Has to be. This ain't for no Bradley Beal.
What
wants to play with Cameron Payne.
What pick number do we have in the draft? Is it like 24, 28? Do you know what pick Phoenix has?
Phoenix? I don't know if they have a pick, Troy.
Yeah, actually, look, I'll give you that right now. No, they do not.
Okay, well, that answers it. Cameron Payne, it is.
Like I genuinely don't know if they have a pick or not. If they do, I think
they had the 52nd pick, but I think they traded that. So yeah, I don't think they do.
Yeah, no, yeah. Phoenix does. Yeah, Phoenix got nothing in the first round, and they have the 52nd pick, but yeah, to Jeff's point, they might have traded that sumbitch. So
regardless, it's the 52nd. Maybe it could be Jokic. You know? Like Matt Ishbia. Who knows?
Yeah,
who knows?
I mean, again, to bring it back to Detroit again very briefly. As far as like teams who could trade up, I'm looking at Orlando, who's at 6-11. I'm looking at Utah, who's at 9-16. I'm looking at teams like Toronto, who's at 13 right now, who, reportedly might want to move off guys like Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby, and are possibly, who are reluctant to blow it up. I heard they might run it back, by the way, like I read reports. Apparently the Raptors are looking at Miami and they're like, well, they weren't a whole lot better than we were, and they got to the finals. We could do that. If that's the case, I think we got to start asking some serious questions about Masai Ujiri. I think we crowned that guy as a great GM all too early.
Well, Scotty Barnes, Rookie of the Year winner. Let's put some respect on his name. Now, if he takes the jump that he should have taken this season, now you're talking to contender, Sean, but he most likely will not.
But one thing Toronto does have is they do have pieces you can move, but they don't want to move them. Like an OG.
Right. It's not any good if you're not moving them.
Right. Gary Trent Jr. is fine. I think there's a little value there. But yeah.
Yeah. Who's the first player you're trading, Sean? If you're the GM of the Toronto Raptors, Sean Murphy, what are you doing?
Oh my God, I'm taking calls on Pascal Siakam right now.
Yeah,
that clock is ticking, man. His value is right there, right now. Same with OG Anunoby. I'm doing a whole freaking fire sale. Everything must go. Let's freaking like really take the studs off it. Put the ball in Scotty Barnes' hands. Like put the pressure on him to actually grow. Put the franchise in his hands and say, hey, we're building this around you. We're getting players around you to make this happen. If you don't, one of the Thompson twins that we just traded up to go get, they'll take it from you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. That makes perfect sense.
So yeah, like I like if I'm the GM of the Raptors, but again, I mean, maybe there's a reason why I'm not a general manager. I don't know. But
players wouldn't be a fan of you, but that's okay because you're winning championships. You're winning championships. I'm telling you. I'm with you. I think the Raptors need to tear it down. If they run this thing back, although Miami's the exception because of how well they're coached, number one, but number two, and maybe the Raptors have that with their new hire, but regardless, how well they're coached, and number two, perfect blend around their franchise player. Like everybody plays for and around and plays well around Jimmy Butler. I don't see that with the Raptors. Maybe I'm wrong.
Here, let's start the comparisons with the Raptors and the Heat. Let's start with this. Do the Raptors have Pat Riley?
They do not.
Oh, okay. Then that's it. Done.
Well, that's
the difference.
That's fair.
One has Pat Riley, the other doesn't.
And last time I checked, they do not have Kawhi Leonard anymore. So
right.
Yeah,
that's a big one too.
Leonard. So that's the other part of it.
Yep. Nick Nurse ain't even there either. Adrian Griffin, their assistant coach from last year, he's gone too. You know, they got Darko from Serbia, and I think he's going to be a really solid coach for them. But you know, again, I mean, they should just blow that. They should just take the C4 and plan it before their opportunity's gone. But what do I know? Anyways, man, I'm just so excited for the draft. Before we go, do you guys think Zion Williamson's getting traded this week? Bill Simmons reportedly said on his podcast that he's hearing the smoke is very real. The Zion stuff is serious. He believes that Zion's getting moved. And listen, if I'm the New Orleans Pelicans, you got to do it. You have to take your out. I know you're going to feel like you're going to vomit because you're going to say, man, we're trading away like what potentially could be this amazing career. But I mean, guys, honestly, I think if we've seen anything, Zion has no desire to reach that in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. He might not have desire to reach that at all. And if I'm the Pelicans, I go get a guy that I know for a fact wants it. That wants to be just in any city.
Sean, you're so good at finding destinations for players like that. Give us 3 scenarios. Obviously, we know Charlotte just because, you know, I think the eye's on number 2 and basically putting your franchise player in Scoot. So, okay, New Orleans 1. So give us 2. I'm sorry, Charlotte being 1. Give us 2 other teams that you think could go get Zion this week if he's moved this week. Because I think it's fair to say he won't play another game in a Pelicans uniform. It's just about this week or sometime in July, right? So go ahead.
I think it's that simple. I think, to your point, Troy, I think there are only 3 teams. I think it's the Hornets. I think it's the Trailblazers, and I think it's the Knicks. I think, you know, I think you look at, you know, the landscape of everything, you know, Charlotte and Portland both, you know, have the opportunity to potentially get Scoot Henderson. If Charlotte, for whatever reason, decides to, you know, pick at 2 and they go with Brandon Miller, you know, the prospects of Zion and Damian Lillard, you know, are very real. I think Portland, you know, would do whatever they can to make that happen. You know, but on the other hand, we have known from lottery night and before then, we have known from when Zion Williamson played in a Duke uniform in the Madison Square Garden that he has wanted to be a New York Knick. When he went, hey, RJ, you want to play for the Knicks? Which is funny because RJ plays for the Knicks. But, but, you know, like we've known ever since then that Zion wants to be in New York. We knew when he was smiling and invisibly upset when the Knicks fell to 3 in that lottery, he wanted to be a Knick. All we have heard is that Zion wants to be in the Mecca. And so if there is a situation where Zion, you know, just goes, hey, man, let's just break this off. If he's hearing all these rumors and he says, you know what? Yeah, let's just call it. The only team outside of the top 3 that I see actually being in a position to make it happen, it's the Knicks because they have the leverage and the fact that we know he wants to be there. They have actual, you know, they have assets and things that you can get in return. And, you know, like, quite frankly, that's the only place where, like, you know, like where if you're not in that top 3, I feel comfortable pulling the trigger because the rest of the league, like, you know, like even for Charlotte, like, yeah, like you can go get Zion and like, you know, you can pitch him. Hey, you can pair him with LaMelo Ball. Like, you know, if I'm Charlotte, I'm looking at that from every angle because that is the type of desperate move that they need to propel them into relevancy, to move their franchise forward. Right. But at the same time, like, you know, it is such a difficult dilemma because I would vomit if I had to trade Zion and I would vomit if I had to trade for Zion because I know what he's capable of, but I also know what he is right now. And that's why we talk all the time, guys, about how important it is having a guy like Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey like on your franchise and as your top players. Because you could say whatever you want about Cade and Ivey. You can have whatever questions, criticisms, qualms, hesitation. You know what's something you don't ever question about those guys? Who they are as people and if they want it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Troy never has to lay his head down on his pillow at night and wonder about either of those two players and a lot of other players in the Pistons. It's just a great locker room. Like you said, he'd stack that locker room against anybody else.
And that is so important. And that is why you're not throwing that away for Zion.
Yeah.
You're just not. So, I mean, ultimately, do you guys think he's getting moved?
Yeah, at this point, not this week. I'm still not this week.
No? You don't think so, Troy?
I don't think New Orleans has come mentally to terms with moving him yet this week.
I think the pressure is on New Orleans to move him this week. I think ideally you move him this week because at least then you have a plan. If you can get a top 2, top 3 pick, preferably top 2 if you want Scoot. At least I think then that's the better deal for them. So if you wait, I don't know what you're getting back, especially with that contract and the amount of question marks he has. If you can't get a top 2 pick or the second pick, then I think New Orleans is in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, guys. 6 months ago, I was sitting right here telling you guys why I thought New Orleans was a potential championship contender. We were looking at the fact that Zion has this extremely deep competitive roster with him in New Orleans. And for whatever reason, it doesn't matter to him. Like you have guys like CJ McCollum in the final game of the year, like in the play-in or like in the playoffs, like very much injured, trying to fight for their lives. He's like, well, at least I'm playing. Like very openly taking shots at Zion. And all this stuff going on with him. Like, I get how talented he is and how good they were and how much potential there is if he is healthy and in that lineup. But, man, if I have any questions of if my guy wants to be here, I get him the hell out of here. Like, it just comes down to that. And, again, I know it's very easy to say from the outside looking in and not being the one that has the control of Zion Williamson in their franchise. But like, they just have to be getting exhausted if this is even something that's getting brought up, right?
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, 100%. Guys, we're going to have Rod Beard here next week on the podcast to break down everything that went down in the NBA draft. I'm super excited about that pod. You're not going to want to miss it. Go check that out. But also, you're going to want to be subscribed to here to the channel for everything that goes down with the NBA draft. There's going to be a whole lot of content surrounding the draft, what goes down, what went down. You're also going to want to follow us on Twitter so you don't miss any of the content and coverage we have going on this week. You can follow my boy Jeff at JeffIF80, Troy Sergey at Troy Sergey44, and myself at Sean Half Court. But that is going to do it for today's episode of From Half Court, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you're subscribed.